Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thank you for joining me. So Plarium announced this week that they are implementing a new system in the upcoming patch that will allow players to trade in fragments, like champion fragments from old champion fusion fragment events for rewards, including potentially fragments towards a new legendary champion that will only be available through this system. Her name is HIGHMOTHER MAUD, and you cannot get her from a shard. So in today's video, I am going to review the information we have about the system. I'm going to give you my impression about how valuable the system is going to be, especially to free-to-play players. And then we're going to do a little champion preview of HIGHMOTHER MAUD, and we'll see if she's any good. So I hope that sounds good to you. I'm raring to go. Let's get started. Now, before we get into this video, I do have a pretty major announcement. I am launching a new channel, a new Colred Plays channel. I will not be leaving this channel. This channel is still my first channel and my main channel, but I am launching a new channel. It should be going live in the next 48 hours. We're going to play some other games. We're going to play some other games other than Raid. I don't know where I'm going to find the time, but I'm going to try it. So take a look out for that. We'll have information here on this channel. We'll also have information announced in our Discord. Don't forget to hit the like button for this video, subscribe to the channel, this channel, if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. And also watch out for the new channel. It's coming soon. We're gonna launch it with a live stream in the next 48 hours. Okay, thanks so much. Now let's get to this video. All right, so here I am sitting with 95 Demitha fragments. This is the most painful of all of my failures, I guess, in fusion events of the past. This was actually the very first fusion event I even attempted. It was a couple of years ago. She was part of a fusion for somebody. I forget exactly who. One of the Bannerlord champions. Sigmund, maybe? Part of Sigmund's fusion. I thought Demitha was extremely valuable then. Unfortunately, I think this happened in October when the clocks changed. And like the second to last day of the fusion event, the clocks changed. I missed the last hour of an event, and I missed 5 fragments, and I didn't complete my Demitha. And I've been looking at her for 2 years here. So I think there's 2 great benefits to this system. One is I'm going to be able to turn those fragments into something of value, hopefully. But the second thing is I can just wipe her out of here. I don't ever have to look at her face again. I had to wait over a year to get my actual copy of Demitha from a shard. In fact, I think I did it during a guaranteed event. So, you know, that helped a little bit. But I would love to get rid of these champions here. There are tons of champions here. You can see Gaius the Gleeful. This wasn't a failure. This was just me not completing a fusion. I just happened to pick up 60 fragments along the way by playing the game. So I do believe that the champions that will be available to trade in are simply going to be past fragment champions. I don't think the permanent fragment champions from Doom Tower will be part of the consideration, because otherwise you would have just an infinite source of fragments. Every month you could pull, you know, all the secret rooms fragments, convert them into rewards, and then do it again the following week without ever actually completing those champions. So I don't think that's what's going to happen. But let's go ahead and actually take a look at the information that we do have about this system. Okay, so here we are, and it says the core mechanics. You can transfer unspent champion fragments into exchange points. 1 exchange point equals 1 legendary champion fragment. So 1 point per legendary fragment, or 1 point per 5 epic champion fragments. Great. So I can get 19 points for my 95 Demitha fragments, or I can get, I guess, 50 points for my 50 Gaius the Gleeful or 60 Gaius the Gleeful fragments. So that ratio doesn't mean much without knowing what the exchange points do. So champions whose fragments can be transferred are marked by a broken fragment icon in the fragment summons tab at the portal. Yeah, so some are going to be available and some aren't. I'm going to assume all the Doom Tower fragment champions are not, and all the login fragment champions are not part of this system. Now, the fragment exchange chest. You can use 5 exchange points to open 1 fragment exchange chest. So 5 legendary fragments will get you 1 chest, or 25 epic fragments will get you 1 chest. Okay, so great. Again, that ratio seems okay, but we don't know what it means. Now, point 2 here says you can open up to 10 fragment exchange chests per week. The limit gets reset every Monday at midnight UTC. Okay, great. So every week you can open up 10 chests. Again, that might be a lot. It might not be that many. We don't know. 3, you can open fragment exchange chests one by one or open all 10 at once. That's great because I have a ton of fragments, so I'm going to be buying 10 every week for the first several weeks. And I'd rather not have to open them one by one. So a little quality of life thing there. That's nice. And then point 4 here, it says each fragment exchange chest contains one of the following random rewards. Here are the High Mother Maud fragments. And then we have XP brews, XP barrels, chickens, feasts, greater potions, and skill tomes. Rare, epic, and legendary. No mythic skill tomes here. Not surprising. Now, this is a little bit worrying because it says that the exchange chest contains one of the following random rewards. And then it says XP brew. Not XP brews with an S. XP brew. I'm assuming this is a typo. There's no way they give us one XP brew in one of these chests. That would be ridiculous. Maybe it's like 20 or 10 of each or something. I don't know. But, you know, we know that Plarium sometimes has problems like difficulties balancing the relative value of various rewards. You can sometimes get like a void shard from a source, and then on another day from the same source, you get 15,000 silver. Those are hugely different values from the same reward system. So my hope is that it isn't one XP brew. In fact, I think XP brews are awful by themselves. Even if you gave me 20 XP brews of each type, that's not nearly as good as one XP barrel or one rank 5 chicken or one feast or one legendary skill tome. Additionally, I don't know how many High Mother Maud fragments we're going to get if we successfully pull those fragments. I hope it's like 5 or 10 as opposed to just 1. If it's 1, that would mean we would have to hit on the fragment 100 times, and you only get 10 a week. And there are 7 different rewards here. So we would be hitting, you know, maybe once a week. It would take you a year, year and a half, maybe longer to get your High Mother Maud. And I don't think that's the goal. I think that it should be a little bit better return rate than that. So hopefully it's at least 5 fragments. Now, number 5 says, see the entire rewards pool by tapping on the fragment exchange chest icon. So once it's live in game, we'll be able to get to see the rewards pool, probably, hopefully, with a bit more detail. Now, in general, this sounds good. This sounds good. I don't have a huge problem with the exchange rates. I'm just a little bit worried about the actual value of the chests themselves and how often you're going to get the High Mother Maud fragments. I would prefer a system kind of like Clan Boss, where all of these are in the pool and you get 3 or 4 or 5 per chest. And so it's like a random mix of rewards as opposed to just one reward. But we'll have to see if Plarium makes any adjustments to this once the system goes live. In general, we weren't getting any value for these wasted fragments. They were just sitting in our portal. So any kind of value is good from a free-to-play perspective. But you can also add value and simultaneously make everybody angry by not adding the value in what seems like a reasonable way. So we'll have to reserve judgment on this. But in general, it feels hopeful, it feels positive, and it's certainly something we've been asking for a long time. Give us some way to use these fragments that help us. Okay, now let's go take a look at High Mother Maud, who is the champion that you can get through this system. Here she is, High Mother Maud. She is a legendary support Force Affinity from the Sacred Order. She looks pretty cool. She does have a little kind of Cardiel-esque halo around her head. I'm assuming High Mother is a higher rank than at least Godseeker. I don't know if she's maybe on par with an Archbishop. But she's definitely a high-ranking member of the Sacred Order. She looks pretty cool. I'm not part of the content creator program. I don't have access to all of the assets at the moment. So the best I can do is show you this picture. But you can always go to the Twitter account, the X account of Raid Shadow Legends. I think they have a video they released earlier today, which shows a little bit more of the visuals. Okay, so let's take a look at her kit. Her A1 is called Blessed Spear. It attacks one enemy, and it has a 70% chance when booked of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. So that alone is solid. You know, it's only a single hit. That doesn't feel quite legendary, but it does feel usable. A 70% chance of decreased attack debuff for 2 turns on an A1. That's nice. This also has a 100% chance when booked of placing an increased attack buff on the ally with the highest attack for 1 turn. So that means as long as she's going as fast or faster than your attack-based nuker, your attack-based nuker will always have increased attack. That's pretty cool. That's usable. So I think that's a decent A1 for a legendary. It's not phenomenal, but it's not bad. Certainly not bad. All right, let's look at the A2, Anointed Phalanx. This will be on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. Attacks all enemies, and it has a 100% chance when booked of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 2 turns. That's actually pretty nice. Most buffs, especially in PvE, most buffs are up for 2 turns. But even in PvP, a lot of buffs are up for 2 turns. Now, decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs for 2 turns is basically cleansing or removing those buffs. But decreasing the duration of enemy buffs is coded differently than a buff strip like Wukong's. And this doesn't trigger polymorph. At least that's my understanding of it. Let me know in the comments below if that's your understanding of it or if I've got that wrong. But I believe that this skill will not trigger polymorph. Now, the attack may, right? Like the attack you're hitting, so the hit could trigger polymorph, but the decreased duration shouldn't. So I think what that means is, like, you know how Wukong will like strip the buffs and then be polymorphed and not hit? I don't think that'll happen here to HIGHMOTHER. I think she will always land her hit. Maybe not. It's kind of interesting though. Okay, and then the next thing is it increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. That's great. Buff extension is always a useful skill. And then it also heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP, which is nice. That means you can have a very predictable heal. It's going to be the same heal for every single member of your team because it's based on her HP. So we'll have to see what her max HP looks like. My guess would be it's probably going to be 19, 20,000. I don't think it's going to be more than that. But it could be. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be like 21 or 22. But either way, it should be at least a healthy HP pool. I like this skill. This skill seems very usable in a lot of places. You could certainly use this in Clan Boss. You could use this in Hydra. This would be a nice way to remove Hydra buffs when they get them. If you don't have a block buffs champion. Increased duration of ally buffs is always good. It's usable in a lot of places. And then it's a nice heal. It's not a huge heal, but it's a nice heal. All right, let's look at our A3, Psalm of Revival. This is on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Revives all dead allies with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. That strikes me as sort of an OG legendary revive, right? Like that's an old school legendary revive. 50% HP and 50% turn meter. It's middle of the road. It's not phenomenal. It's certainly usable. It's not a bad revive. I wouldn't say that. By itself, that seems like a nice middle of the road legendary revive. If an ally's defense is equal to or higher than their attack, you get an increased defense. If the attack is higher, you get an increased attack. I'm not a huge fan of this split buff scenario. I would prefer just an increased defense for everybody after a revive. But you can probably use this to buff your champions when they're not dead. Like you don't necessarily need to use it as a revive. You could just use it as a straight up buff. And that makes her usable in places like Arena as a setup champion. There's no turn meter, fill in addition to this. But it means whether you have a defensive based damage dealer or an attack based damage dealer, she's going to give them the proper buff to hit harder. Okay, now let's look at her passive. Removes 1 random debuff from all allies at the start of this champion's turn. Now, this is a great, already this passive is pretty solid because this is a Doom Priest-esque passive. And as far as I remember, there are only 2 champions in the entire game that have a passive like this. Doom Priest, who's an epic and removes 1 random debuff from all allies at the start of her turn. Plus, she has like a 7% heal or something. And then Tuhanarok, who is a Void Legendary, who cleanses 2 debuffs from all allies. But she is a Void Legendary and relatively hard to get. So this makes her usable in a lot of places where that cleanse is going to be valuable, including potentially Clan Boss. Okay, the second part of this passive places a 15% continuous heal buff on the ally with the lowest HP for 1 turn at the end of this champion's turn. So it's sort of a weaker form of like a Scylla the Drake's. It's not even really a Scylla the Drake's because Scylla the Drake's heal is AoE. A continuous heal is stronger because it's 15% as opposed to, I think it's 10% for Scylla the Drake's or 12%. Okay, so this is a little bit of sustain. It's not a ton of sustain, but if you mix that in with the A2, which is a nice medium-sized heal, she provides some sustain for your team. I don't know that you would call her a great healer, but she certainly can supplement the sustain that you might get from having like lifesteal gear or a leech debuff on a boss, or maybe somebody who provides some shields and other continuous heals. So she can definitely be used in a team composition to help sustain a team. Her aura increases ally accuracy in all battles by 60, which is nice. I think that she looks like an extremely versatile support. You're going to be able to use her in a lot of places. The decrease attack is usable in clan boss. It's also usable on any boss fight, really, but it's really, you know, when you think about it, it's like, okay, that's usable in clan boss. The increased attack means that your clan boss damage dealer will always have an increased attack. You can extend the buffs of allies. That's great for a killable clan boss composition. You can also decrease the enemy buffs by 2 turns. That's great for clan boss. That means you can remove the increased attack that the clan boss gets. You do have an increased defense and an increased attack buff there as AoEs, even if you don't need the revive. And then you can cleanse the stun, and you get continuous heals as well. So she really feels like she could be usable early on in clan boss, even maybe up through Ultra Nightmare, if you're building a killable clan boss composition that needs that extension of ally buffs. That could be really powerful. I could see her being used in Doom Tower. I could see her being used in a lot of places. I think if you get this champion relatively early on your account, you're going to be really happy. I don't know how likely that's going to be. Like, do you think you're going to get her before you get Scylla the Drakes? Like, if you started today, would you get her before you got Scylla the Drakes at 6 months login? I don't know. We'll have to see the drop rate. But if you're thinking about, can you get, 10 chests per week early on, you can't. You're not going to have the fragments. So probably this is going to be a longer term endeavor. This is going to be more like maybe fusing Razin. I mean, when you think about it, Razin's a permanent fusion, and she's basically the equivalent of a permanent fusion. She's just a permanent fragment fusion as opposed to a permanent classic fusion. But maybe she's more along the lines of 8 months to a year for most accounts, like new accounts. However, if you have been in the game for a while like I have and you have a ton of fragments, you might get multiple copies of this champion relatively quickly, depending on the drop rate for the fragments. And I think that she, for free-to-play players, may be the most likely champion to allow you to get to like a 4-star empowerment on her. You might be able to get 5 copies of this champion inside a few months if you've been playing this game for 3 or 4 years. That's pretty cool. You could also not do that. You could not empower her. You could run multiple copies. You could make her your faction guardian. You could maybe fill 4 or 5 or 6 spots of the faction guardians, of the Sacred Order. And that could be really valuable if you have a pretty good roster of legendaries in that faction. So I do think this is pretty cool. Oh, I just thought of one other thing that you can do. You can hold her fragments. You can hold her fragments for champion chases or for CVCs. So the system gives a lot of potential value in different ways to free-to-play players. I do think it's going to come down to the drop rate on those fragments. And like I said, it may not be a fast process. It may be a Scylla the Drakes process. It may be more of a Razin or Mithrala process. It may even be more like a Lydia process where, realistically, you're looking at a year or more. But like I said, if you've been playing the game for a while, chances are you're going to get it pretty quickly. And remember that this isn't the only reward. You still get all the other rewards. So 5-star chickens, potentially legendary tomes. There's some good ones out there, feasts and XP barrels. So I like it. I like the champion. I think she's super versatile. I would like to say that players can get her relatively quickly, but I don't know. I just don't know. But I do like the system and I like the champion. So I think all in all, good job, Plarium. Thank you so much for actually fulfilling one of our players' requests to do something with the old fragments that were otherwise useless. I think that is a major quality of life improvement. And I know that I am critical of Plarium from time to time, but I think that this is a great addition to the game. And hopefully it'll also be a friendly addition to the game. We'll see when it actually launches. Okay, so that is it for me. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about HIGHMOTHER Maud? Do you think she's going to be valuable to you and your account? Also, do you think that the system is going to be friendly enough that we can get her in a reasonable time frame? Definitely let me know that in the comments below as well. Okay, that is it for me today. Thanks so much for hanging out. I have been Colred, and I will see you in another video soon.